Welcome to the T2 Hubcast. Join Martin, Dave, Spencer and guests as they discuss all things personal and professional development. The T2 Hubcast, brought to you by the People Performance People.
So welcome to another T2 Hubcast in our brand spanking new T2 Hubcast room. We've got Dave Pendleton.
Hey.
We've got myself and we've got Spencer Locker.
Howdy.
Now, Spencer and Dave are although we've got a new podcast room, we're still waiting for some equipment to arrive, which means Dave and Spencer are sharing a microphone again.
Back in sinners, aren't we? It's very cosy.
It's very cozy, and you're going to have to lean in every time it's your turn to speak.
We just got to make sure we do it one at a time, or we're going to start kissing.
So, as always, it's good fun. We haven't even started, and we're giggling. But it's the third round of answering questions from LinkedIn. So we put a post out yesterday. We usually ask LinkedIn users to ask us questions around leadership, around sales, customer service, or just any type of question, and we'll answer it. So, as always, in usual fashion, gents, we have our questions from LinkedIn. I think we've got 2 or 3 that we can answer today. So let's go for it. It's unprepared as usual, but we'll see what comes out of it. You ready?
Yeah, ready.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first question, which we didn't actually answer, from Tyler Helm last time. If you remember, we ran out of time, so we promised him that we would answer his question on the next one. Now, for Tyler's question, Tyler is a rig maintenance supervisor at Noble Drilling, but I know that Tyler, like me, is ex-Royal Navy. I think he knows my brother, Danny Johnson, who still serves in the Royal Navy. But he's been following our progress, and he always takes time to comment and add to what we're doing. So Tyler's question is, how do you mentor the alpha? Now, for those of you out there who doesn't know what Tyler means, we call the alpha wolf in our leadership programs is the difficult, dominant type of mindset where they know best. They're pretty closed off to coaching and support. They're quite a force to be reckoned with. And the alphas can be really good performers. The alpha wolf can be a really good performer in organizations, but they can be difficult for leaders to manage. It's almost like these are the people who you want in the trenches and you want doing the job, but boy, are they a pain in the ass, right? And everybody listening to this can probably relate to that. So Tyler's question is, how do you deal with or mentor the alpha? And yes, we want to embrace them for performance, but what's the right and the wrong way when it comes, if you've got an alpha wolf in your team, how do you make them become less combative, less disruptive, and get the best out of them while keeping them for what they do well? And is there, I guess, gents, a point in time at which you've got to draw the line if it is becoming a bit too disruptive to the wider environment? So that's the question. Dave, over to you. Alpha wolves. Is there a place for them? Do we want to nurture them? Do we meet them head on? Or is there a better way?
Well, it's a very familiar story to us. We get asked that question frequently when we run the leadership days. And I think the best advice that I can always give to somebody, we talk about the sort of collaborative and visionary approach to leveraging the very best out of the alpha wolf. Because as you mentioned, the alpha wolf is generally very tenured, usually very experienced and very credible at what they do, usually very knowledgeable and very competent. So let's leverage that rather than fight against it. Now, if you're a strong leadership type yourself, all that's going to happen is you're going to just bang heads, as we know.
Yeah.
So the best way for me is to regularly communicate what the bigger picture is, regularly communicate how important the alpha wolf is in that bigger picture. And as soon as you start asking the alpha wolf for help, can you help me, Mr. Alpha Wolf? It makes them feel very, very important. And from my experience, it's a very easy way to gain collaboration from somebody who's usually quite resistant.
So, yeah, I love that. So what you're saying there, and this is what we say a lot, isn't it, is if you deploy a directive style of management with an alpha wolf, i.e. you become authoritarian, you become dictative, you start trying to out-alpha them, they will meet you head on. Right. So what we're saying is box clever. You need to get them in the tent. And to do that, you've got to empowerment. You've almost got to elevate their status up to as equal as your own even though you're their manager or you're their leader, right? But by doing that,
I think even beyond, because when you start saying, "Can you help me?"
Yeah,
you're almost becoming slightly more submissive than they are. Even though you aren't, you're making them feel a little bit more powerful than you are, which will absolutely buy them in.
Now, managers out there listening to this will struggle because they think, well, I don't want to appear weak. If I appear submissive or I need too much help, then I'm going to appear weak. Well, no. You know, you're boxing clever here. It's not that you're weak, but you understand how to get the best out of another person and to get them in the 10. And that's what great leaders do. Spence.
It's collaborative rather than weakness. And when and you've got to sort of basically know when to take it on the chin for the greater good or for the long term. But what I would like to do is spin it back on you, Martin, if I can.
Yeah.
Because you are a self-confessed former alpha wolf.
Dave's laughing because he's
the former.
Yes.
So what worked for you?
It's like Teen Wolf with me. It's still there and it comes out every now and then. And then I have a mad sort of half an hour as an alpha, and then I get back in my box and realise that it's not the way. But
usually the last day of the month.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I do think I was an alpha wolf for many years, and I think any of my old managers or anybody who's worked with me probably at my days in Gartner or anybody else, if they're listening to this, will be smiling, because I had an enormous amount of belief in personal power. And I think that was compounded by the fact that I was also good at my job. And in a sales role, for example, when I was going through various sales roles and into sales leadership, the more successful I got, the worse my alpha wolfness got, if that makes sense. It sort of says to you, well, I am bloody good at my job and you can't afford to get rid of me. So I will do what I please and you can't tell me. And I mean, I'm sort of painting a picture that I was a nightmare. I probably wasn't that bad, but I certainly had a voice, and I certainly at times bent the rules and didn't adhere to certain process because I felt it was a waste of time and I knew better. And I was probably a nightmare for my managers at the time who were trying to just get stuff done and fill in the systems and tick the boxes they had to tick, right? But that was it. The more I felt it was a waste of time and I had to tick the boxes, the less I wanted to do it. So I've become very combatant against this. And I guess the turning point for me was a realization. It was a female leader who sort of highlighted to me that I was such an asset to the company and to her, and that she needed me, to your point, Dave. Mm-hmm. She absolutely needed me on her side and in her team. But I needed to leave less chaos in my wake. And she said to me, Martin, you need to build friends and allies, because being good at the job will only take you so far in isolation. But that's all you will ever be, is that lone wolf. She sort of educated me to the importance of stakeholder management. As much as that to some is corporate bullshit, where you're playing the game and building the allies and working your way up the chain and all the rest of it, she sort of painted a different picture and said, if you want to be successful going forward and elevate your career to the next level, you need to build relationships and rapport. You need to open your mind. You need to calm your chimp. You need to sometimes understand that process and systems are a necessary evil in organizations. And you will have far more collaborative success than being that on your own and being unconsciously competent. But because she offered me the opportunity to consider that and not dictate it to me, it really did resonate with me, and that sort of changed my mindset. So yeah, to answer your question, Spence, I still have it in me to an extent, a little bit. I know a lot of people out there do, but to echo Dave's point and to answer Tyler's question, the person who got far more success with me out in Alpha the Wolf was the female manager who didn't meet me head on. Because prior to that, I worked for about 5 Alpha Wolf males and we just clashed. It was like an Alpha Wolf off. Right. And there was only going to be one winner there. And that was either my manager because they outranked me, or I just disengaged. Right. So she took a different style. She got visionary with me. She made me see the future and what it could look like, and invited me to either get on the ship or not. So it was my decision. Does that make sense? So to your point, Dave, use a visionary management style, be amiable, consider their point of view, sell them the dream and the story of what and why, and invite them on that journey rather than trying to meet them head on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a big difference between being authoritative by nature and being authoritative by behavior.
Yeah. I always say a similar thing, directive by style or nature,
Yeah.
i.e. being directive and authoritative by style is being calm, being straight to the point, being factual, and giving direction. Being directive, authoritative by nature is when you allow the emotion to come into it. It gets personal, it gets aggressive, it gets confrontational, and that's when an alpha wolf will meet you head on. We've talked about that, Spence, haven't we, in different podcasts? Yeah, so I agree. Anything else on the alphas out there? I mean, just a little word on performance. I mean, performance is king. We say this in situational leadership, don't we, gents? If an alpha wolf is performing, you want people in roles who can do the job. So what we're saying there is it's your job to manage the alpha if the performance is there. If the performance is not there, i.e. they're not really good at the job, then you've got to deal with it because now it's an issue. Where do you stand, Dave and Spencer, on what if the performance, like they're a top performer in terms of the job, you wouldn't have anyone else, but their alpha wolf behavior and mindset is now becoming toxic to the wider environment. So they're your best player on the pitch, right? But they've got the ability to poison and create a negative environment around them. What do you do then as a leader?
I think the prime example is David Beckham at Man United with Alex Ferguson.
Or Jaap Stam or Ronaldo, all the big wigs that Fergie got rid of, right?
So arguably, David Beckham at the time was probably one of the world's best wingers, most accurate crossers, best on dead ball, set pieces, free kicks, and so on and so forth. Single-handedly got Liverpool, England, into cup finals and so forth. But was becoming larger than the club, in Alex Ferguson's words.
Yeah,
and he was becoming toxic. His relationship with the manager and some of the other players was becoming toxic. So he removed the toxic element by getting rid of David Beckham.
Yeah.
Did Man United suffer for it? Did they suffer when they got rid of Jaap Stam and so on and so forth? No, they didn't.
Yeah.
Did they become more successful? I'm not really sure. But they certainly didn't become less successful.
Well, the reason you're hesitating is because you're a Liverpool fan, Dave. So you can't bring yourself to say.
Just alluded to that.
Yeah, absolutely. They were incredibly successful, is your point. Even after Jaap Stam, even after Beckham, even after Ronaldo. No other manager would have sold those players in their prime like he did, right? Because they would have put up with the situation because of what they do on the pitch. It's like Steve Jobs famously came back to Apple after being in the wilderness and sacked by his own company. And one of the first things he did is get rid of every single one of them around the table, because anybody who's going to disrupt the wider environment and become toxic cannot be on the ship. Right? Go on, Spence.
I was just going to say, give you an opportunity to gas off a little bit, Martin.
Yeah.
Like you need an opportunity.
An invitation for Martin, Spence. I mean, really.
Tell me about the New Zealand All Blacks policies.
Oh, yeah. So this comes from, I did a speaking engagement at a conference recently with Sean Fitzpatrick, who is the former All Black captain, World Cup winning captain. A lot of people know Sean Fitzpatrick from the punditry he does on BBC, for the autumn internationals and the Six Nations, etc. Sean Fitzpatrick, I listened to his talk. He was after me, and I listened to his talks. I always like listening to other speakers, and he told a story of the All Blacks culture, and they have a particular policy in the All Blacks, which he called it the no dickhead policy. and everybody sort of laughed in the room because this was like a business conference. And he said, no, it's not a joke. We have a no dickhead policy. And what that means is, doesn't matter how good a player you are, how good an All Black you are in terms of your physical capability or your talent, if you don't have the right attitude and mindset, you're not getting in. No dickheads, right? And that was his, and he sort of started telling these businesses that they need to consider this from a cultural perspective as well, right? So I know we're saying performance is king, and it is. We want people who can do the job, right? And you should want that. But when the balance tips, where this alpha wolf's behavior becomes so toxic to the point where it starts to filter out to the wider environment and affect the overall productivity of the organization, you have to take action, like Alex Ferguson did, like the All Blacks did, like Steve Jobs did. If it's not that bad and you can contain it and manage it as a manager, then guess what, managers? It's part of your job. Don't shy away from it. It's part of your job to leverage the performance and protect the wider environment. If it filters out, make the bloody tough decision is what we're saying, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think if there's no other comments, guys, that probably answers Tyler's question for this podcast.
Yeah,
so Tyler, hope that answers it. I mean, I know there's a lot more we could do on that, but it certainly gives you a few tips. So let's come on to another question. Our friend James Greenwood, MD at Strawberry, he's put a question forward that says, you are only allowed to own one book for the rest of your life. And then he's put in brackets, because he knows me well, and no, Martin, it can't be yours, which is a shame because it was a chance for me to plug the book.
Well, I Am Human, 30 Mistakes to Success by Martin Johnson.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to choose. I Am Human, 30 Mistakes to Success by Martin Johnson, available on Amazon, £7.
But we can. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, absolutely. So he's put what book? So you're only allowed one book to own, and we're avid readers of books. We've read a lot of books, as you can imagine. And he's put business related, ideally, not the Beano annual. Smiley face. So Spencer, you can't have the Viz, unfortunately, which I know you would.
What, the Profanosaurus?
Is it Rogers?
Rogers Profanosaurus.
Rogers Profanosaurus. You can't have it, right?
Oh.
Anybody want to go first on this? I mean, I'm going to struggle because I love books and I've got a top probably 20. And if I was to just keep one with me, let me have a think about that, Dave. What springs into your mind straight away? Would you go business-related book or would you go something else? Or
well, if I'm honest, I only read business-related books.
Yeah, me too, more or less.
Self-help books, if you like. I think the difficult thing for me is I would probably have to choose 2 or 3 that cover different topics. So I guess if I was to choose one, I forget the author, but it's called Spirit to Serve, and it's the story of the Marriott chain.
Yes.
How the Marriott chain really sort of sprung into life to become what it was. And really, it's a business book about success and growth mindset, overcoming challenges, and so on and so forth. But actually, it's a customer service story.
Right.
Because the Marriott success was built on pioneering, and I mean first one-offs in design. I mean, like they're the first people to put plug sockets above desks in hotel rooms instead of underneath. They were the first people to ever introduce ladies' coat hangers, all these types of things, because traveling businessmen traditionally had been men.
Yeah.
As opposed to ladies too.
So the book Dave's talking about is The Spirit to Serve, Marriott's Way, it's actually by J.W. Marriott, one of the initial founders. So it's an old book, but like you say, it's probably at its time, it was probably one of the, I say it's an old book, it was originally published in 97.
Yeah.
But back in 97, before the digital revolution, everything was around people, around serving others. Yeah.
And it still is,
So what you're saying is we forget some of those basic principles.
Just the very basic principles, and it really epitomizes for me world-class proactive customer service, always trying to be one step ahead of what the customer needs and wants from the room, from the service, from the staff, from the people, from the environment, and so on and so forth. And I think I'm not sure so much nowadays, but certainly 10 years ago when I used to stay in Marriott hotels fairly regularly, they lived up to the standards that were set 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah, love it. So that recommendation or the answer from Dave and the recommendation is A Spirit to Serve, the Marriott's Way by J.W. Marriott. And you can probably get that online at any point. Right, Spence, you're up. What are you going, business book? Are you going military book? Are you an autobiography?
Well, I like to read autobiographies, I must admit, but it's a tough question because it's like asking somebody what the favourite song is. I haven't got a favourite song. I've got loads of songs I like, but the thing is, it depends what mood you're in. It depends what mood you're in, what you want to, what's your favourite this, what's your favourite that, at whatever given time.
But if you could have one.
Yeah, but a lifetime's a long time. You see, I'm a 9 and I won't commit to anything. I'd rather make no decision than the wrong decision.
So
however,
you could do with a book on decisions.
If you're looking for a recommendation book-wise, rather than business, I would go leadership, and from a leadership perspective, it's a book called Taking Point, and it's by a bloke called Brent Gleeson. He's an ex Navy SEAL, and you know, you can read your military books, and it's a story about how they do this, that, and the other. How they went through training or all these different experiences, and they sort of take up a certain sort of structure. Brent Gleeson's taken a different tack. He's broken it down into different chapters, and he tells stories about his experiences in the Navy SEALs, but then he actually talks about the back end of the chapter, the lessons learned during that and how it transposes over into civilian life, into business, into leadership, into teamwork and things like that. It's not a very common book. You might have to do some digging about for it, but if you do get it, I'd give it some time. Have a read. Very interesting.
Cool. Never read of that one myself, Spencer. So I would be interested in reading that one. I guess for me, if I was to answer this question, I think the obvious answer that everybody would be expecting me to say would be Steve Peters' The Chimp Paradox. The book changed my life. I've said it on a million occasions, but because I've sort of read it so many times, and I don't think that, because I know it, I don't think I'd need the book to remember it. So it probably wouldn't be the book I choose. And then I've got an array of other second string books, like you've got Black Box Thinking by Matthew Syed, which is a fantastic book. You've got The 7 Habits by Stephen Covey, which is a fantastic book. One of the most enjoyable reads I ever had was a book called Enchantment by Guy Kawasaki, one of the former Apple chief evangelists, who he basically did a modernized version of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, but it's called Enchantment, and it's only 200 pages. It's a very thin book, and he gets straight to the point on how to enchant other human beings when you first meet them, how to relate to and build rapport and leave an impression on other people, and I really enjoyed that. But I wouldn't choose any of them. The one I would choose, the one I'm going to go with, is the one that taught me the most, even over and above The Chimp Paradox, about human beings, about Homo sapiens, which is the book Sapiens by, I think it's I always get the name mixed up, but it's Yuval Noah Harari, I'm going to go with, or Yuval Harari. He's written a book called Sapiens. It's a heavy read. It's about 450 pages. It starts off 2 million years ago, goes through early man, early Homo sapiens foraging the earth, to how we came through to developing the cognitive revolution when we discovered fire, how our brains changed when we started digesting our foods, the farming and agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, through to today in the digital world. And it's the evolution of us, how we've become who we are in the modern day, but we still have those roots of basic foragers of an animal, which we are as Homo sapiens. And it teaches you a lot around why we think, feel, and act the way we do. And when you strip us right back, we still have those basic survival and reproduction and instincts. So I would recommend Sapiens, and I would have Sapiens because it just gives the entire existence of humanity and why we are like we are today. He's also written a follow-up book to Sapiens and Karen, but it's looking at where we're going to be in the future, how we're going to continue to evolve, and what us as sapiens will look like 100 years from now. So yeah, my recommendation would be Sapiens, and I think that would be how I would answer James's question. Listen, guys, we could talk about books all day long, couldn't we? Because we love them. Yeah. And we've only got some sort of 5 or 10 minutes left. So I'm going to come to one last question, Spence, which is also from James, but it was a bit of a fun one, but I'm going to see if we will answer this or not, as the case may be. So he's put fun one for Spencer Locker. So obviously James knows that Spence is on the show SAS Who Dares Wins as a resistance to interrogation instructor. He's modest about it. He likes to keep away from the cameras and keep a low profile, but we're trying to change that, aren't we, Spence?
Except yesterday when he was having selfies with people from the training group.
Oh, yeah, when he got spotted from the training group and they were having
very
selfies.
large smiles on his face.
Yeah, he's becoming a star. He's becoming
very,
famous.
very humble.
Absolutely. So James has put, fun one for Spencer Locker. Which of the celebrities on the current version of SAS Who Dares Wins, Celebrity Special, would he leave in Chile without their passport if they had gotten away with it? So I think what he's saying is, having worked with now the celebrity Spence on the celebrity version of SAS Who Dares Wins and spent time with them under duress and pressure, which one showed the true colours and which one would you quite happily leave out there without a passport?
That's a really interesting question. Thank you very much for that. I won't lie to you. there was one or two actually really pushed me buttons. It's amazing the insight into people's mental state and ego, I suppose, to a certain degree, when they're fatigued, when they've got sleep deprivation, and we're putting them under the cosh, so to speak, figuratively, not literally. Unfortunately, I think, as speaking as a professional, and the fact that I wouldn't mind being asked back to do another series, I can't really answer that. I think I'll have a look and see what you think on TV. I mean, I don't know what's going to be on next week's show. Oh, sorry, next week's show, day after tomorrow, isn't it? Crikey. I wouldn't feel comfortable because, to be honest with you, they're all there for a good reason. They're all there to stand up for cancer. And they're all taking out of the comfort zones. And I got my buttons pushed a little bit. However, you've got to take it in the spirit of that it was offered. But maybe later, maybe when I write my book, I might divulge that.
So you're bottling it, Spence.
I'm not. I'm being a professional.
You're bottling it.
I don't think that stops us answering, though, does it?
Oh yeah. So
just so we can answer the question that was put.
Yeah. If I'm watching the show, right, and I don't know these celebrities like Spencer knows them, but if I was to answer James's question, I'd probably answer it like this: made in Chelsea, left in bloody Chile. That's how I would answer it, Dave.
I'm just going to give some initials. GB.
GB. Is it GB or JB?
Or JB, maybe.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, Mr. Self-Centered.
Mr. Brazier.
I didn't say that, but you did. So it's all about me. It's all about me. It's all about me.
Yeah, it does come across that way. And again, you know what? It's often one of them, isn't it? Where if we was on that show under duress, under pressure, hungry, tired, how would we come across? It's easy to sit on the other side of the telly and go, yeah, I've got your character nailed down and I've got your character nailed down and I bet you'd be a nightmare. And you can get indications, but I'd like to think, Dave, especially me and you, we'd be a bit pissed off and grumpy without food and sleep and having to stay in a room with a load of other people. And you know what I'm like for people who eat loud and drink loud and make noises and snore and stuff. I think I'd be a bloody nightmare to live with. I get hungry anyway. So, yes, but
I think we need to just remember also that they are doing it for charity, which is the main thing.
Of course. And that's one of the big things you said in it, Spencer. Yeah. It's one of the reasons that Spencer wouldn't answer that question. Fair play to them all is our answer to your question, James. So,
however, it is a long way back on foot from Chile. Maybe we could do a sponsored walk on the way back.
Yeah, it'd still be made in Chelsea, left in Chile for me. It's a fab show. We love it. I think it's doing great stuff, and hopefully there's going to be another series. So with a few minutes left, gents, we've answered the questions. That concludes this Hubcast on how to deal with the Alpha Wolf. Which book would we recommend or keep, or if we could only own one? And a nice little light-hearted conversation to finish on the show. So Dave, Spencer, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
Ta-ta.
They're starving. They're ready for the lunch. It's lunchtime, so we're going to go and get something to eat. And we'll be back again after the long bank holiday weekend with another T2 Hubcast. So it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And me as well.
I'm sure that's on a famous comedy show, isn't it? We've nicked it. We'll have it anyway. And we'll be back shortly with another T2 Hubcast.